Hey everyone, it's Jack. Continuing to talk about all of the All-Stars twists, I want to revisit All-Stars 7 because it's been almost a year at this point. I think All-Stars 7 is amazing and one of the best in a lot of ways, but the more I think about it, there's just some things that really hold me back from truly loving it. This will eventually become its own video, but just to kind of explain myself, I think the season is positive to a fault. What keeps me invested is the amazing performances, and I do really love to celebrate all of these winners. But there's basically no narrative for a lot of the season, so judging it as a whole, I just am not the biggest fan. And with it also being positive to a fault, it kind of lures us into this idea that everyone was just having the best time on set, and that's simply not true. A queen was rumored to walk out. Evie's gone on social media to talk about how her depiction on the show was not very accurate at all, and Evie really deserves her own video too. And though they did have a lot of fun on set, the edit just doesn't show everything. It's not this complete paradise. For a lot of the season though, this unrelenting positivity mixed with amazing performances and runways was able to keep me invested, but towards the end of the season, the last two episodes specifically, I really checked out. You can argue that there's a lot of twists in All-Stars 7, the fact that there's no eliminations and it's like a point system, and also just the fact that it's winners in general. But within this new format, there was another twist that happened in episode 11. Let's stop dancing around the answer. It's the 3 stars twist at the talent show. Before I continue, only a small portion of you guys are subscribed, so if you enjoy my content, please subscribe. We're getting really close to 80k. It's amazing. It's a goal of mine, so if you want to help me out, please subscribe. So for those who need a refresher, All-Stars 7 worked on a point system where there was a top 2 queens each week, and if they were in the top 2, they earned a legendary legend star, unless they were blocked from receiving one in the previous week. And the way that would happen is the top 2 would lip sync, and the winner of that lip sync would be given the power to block another queen. It's a fun format that I think has a lot of potential and was shown off decently well in All-Stars 7. One of the weeks earlier on, the top 2 queens of the previous week were able to give stars to any of the queens of their choice. So this format up to episode 11 was pretty standard. There was one little thing thrown in there, but for the most part, they could strategize a little bit, but it was very straightforward. How it was ending up, the queens who were winning the most challenges would have the most stars and then make it to the top 4 of the season. Although this was predictable, with the new format, I was totally happy to see something a lot more standard. But Drag Race wasn't, it really never is, so then we get to episode 11 where it's announced that 3 stars are going to be given out for the winners of the challenge. For the structure of the format, there is a lot wrong with this twist, and even the queens in Untucked kind of called it out very lightly. Other than Jinx, every single other queen on the season had 3 or less stars, and all of the stars were earned slowly over the course of the competition. But hypothetically, if a queen were to have 0 stars but then win the challenge of this episode, they would be tied with a lot of the other queens, basically making the entire format of the season mean nothing because a queen can just get in at the end. And I know you might be thinking that this is what happened to Shay, but let's talk about Shay really quick. So before this episode, Shay was at 1 star, and everything that they knew about the twist meant that Shay wasn't going to make it to the finale because everyone had more stars than her. Jinx, Jada, and Trinity had 3, everyone else had 2. So if this was a normal episode and Shay got into the top, she would have been at 2, but the other person, even if they had 2, would have gone to 3 and she couldn't make it. And she knew this at the top of the episode, and one of my favorite clips from the previous episode where she's just looking directly in the camera.
Next week will be your final maxi challenge and your last chance to earn legendary legend stars. Where there's a will, there is a way. Now,
she completely knew there was either going to be a twist or she was just completely out for the running. What the producers were trying to go for is this really triumphant last chance qualifier thing, where after weeks and weeks of not getting in the top, Shay is redeemed and then she makes it to the end. But that one part that I just said, the weeks and weeks of not getting into the top, that was also their hand. So much of this twist was artificially forced in by the producers at the expense of Shay, and though she did get in the top at the end, she still received a lot of hate from fans because of the producers' choices. A lot of terrible fans of Drag Race already tried to discredit her All-Stars 5 win, so for them to then choose Shay while sandbagging her entire run on All-Stars 7 while kind of knowing what she already went through, I just think it was a really bad choice. That same group of fans who already tried to discredit her first win are then going to be like, oh, it's so rigged, why are they rigging it for her, blah blah blah. When there was an easier, much more natural choice that was right in front of the producers, just giving Shay the wins where she deserves them. Aside from always just wanting to throw twists into All-Stars, I think one of the reasons they tried to throw this 3-star twist in is because it was getting a little too predictable. With how the stars were shaking down, we knew that Jinx was going to make it and a couple other people were getting pretty close, so they wanted some unexpectedness towards the end of the season. But to me, this twist just felt like a cheap thrill, and what would have been a lot more engaging is just watching queens with similar stars all trying to get in the top at the end. I think the 3-star twist also helps the producers in some way, trying to avoid the bad math that could come with just 1 star. If someone like Evie or the Vivian won, that would leave 4 queens at 3 stars, and how do they pick that then? I like what they did with Monet, her having the most stars and her picking Trinity to be be in the top. Great way to wrap up their storyline. But then the more and more you start to think they threw this twist in to fix the math of their format. So it's just such a lose-lose situation. This twist was put in for potentially good TV and to save the bad math of the format they just created, but instead they just made multiple other problems happen, like making the entire season obsolete because of just one win. The happy medium of 2 stars definitely could have worked with Monet and Shay still being in the top. Shay, Trinity, and Jada would be at 3, and Monet and Jinx would be at 4, and you would just have Monet and Jinx each pick one person. So basically what I think would be better is giving Shay the wins that she deserved over the course of the season, or at the very end make it a 2-star twist instead of a 3-star twist and have Jinx and Monet pick their top 2. But in the end, it just ended up feeling like a quick fix, a cheap thrill, and just poor planning for the long-term game of All-Stars 7. And outside of the twist ruining the format for the last 2 episodes, I also just don't like the last 2 episodes in general, challenge-wise. Starting with episode 11, I think I've talked about it before. I love that they did the charity donation. I think it was a really positive episode in a good way. But outside of Monet and Raja, I wasn't won over by any of the performances. They were all good, but nothing completely special. And I think it's very apparent that a lot of the queens thought this was going to be the first challenge rather than the last. And I think they were really valid in assuming so because every season before this, the talent show came first. So people like Jinx and the Vivian did original songs, people like Jada and Trinity did bitch tracks that had a lot of references to previous seasons, but because it was spun as a charity show and put at the end of the season, a lot of the things that they were referencing or talking about, especially after watching them over the course of the whole season, it felt like we regressed back to who they would have been at the beginning of the season, which makes sense. What they did for All-Stars 7 and 8 by switching the cast song to the beginning of the season, I'm really not a big fan of. It's a decent way for these queens to reintroduce themselves by writing verses and performing, but dancing and choreo may not be a strong suit for some of these queens, and instead a better introduction is a talent show where they get to choose their own talent. Of course, this is all speculation. These queens could have been told that the talent show was coming at the end, which in that case, them choosing to do a bitch track on references from a previous season is just not the best planning, but to me, I feel like they would have thought it would be at the beginning. And I'm gonna make the prediction that this whole debacle may happen again next week with the Fame Games going on for All-Stars 8. The current time I'm recording this is right before episode 11 of All-Stars 8, which seems to be a talent show with all the eliminated queens coming back to perform a talent. It's for them to showcase themselves for the Fame Games, for people to vote for them, but they didn't know that the Fame Games twist was gonna be a thing until they got there, so I feel like a lot of them thought that the talent show would be the first challenge as opposed to the last. So I can totally see someone like Kahana and especially Candy doing a bitch track, making a ton of references to the original season because they thought that this was gonna be the challenge to introduce them again. I can totally see Candy's being in reference to her being called arrogant, something kind of like Morgan McMichaels, but this is all speculation. I don't know if Candy's actually gonna perform in the talent show, but I feel like they should at least let them perform for fun. Definitely come back to this video after the episode airs and either tell me that I'm right or stupid and wrong. Either way, that'd be really funny. As for episode 12, I've talked about it a lot already on this channel, and the more time this episode has simmered, the less and less I like it. If we're talking about good twists for the season, I think the She Done Already Done Had Hers' twist was amazing and one of the best ways to make sure that these queens still feel like winners after this season. But like everyone has said, for an all-winner season, the lip sync for the crown on just the main stage is so anticlimactic. I completely get how hard it was to just get all of these winners in the same room for this long of time, and how much they wanted to keep the all-winners format a secret until it came out. But I feel like they could rope all these winners back again one last time for a big grand celebration on a big live stage. Just imagine what these winners could do if they were given the list of songs and were able to prepare beforehand. The stunts, the reveals, the performances, it could have been amazing if they had more time to prepare. But as is, we get a lukewarm end to a season that is honestly still great, even if I don't like these last 2 episodes. For all of this season's faults, I still think this is a very big net positive. The performances and challenges, the queens' interactions, and especially the runways always have me coming back, even if the edit and critiques come off a little phony at some points. Thank you all for watching. I've decided to do a ranking of all the twists at the end of this little mini series I decided to do. Make sure you subscribe and support all of the queens from all of these seasons, especially All-Stars 8, because I feel like there is a lot of blind hate going out right now. I don't love the season, but I do love the queens that were on the season, and you should definitely support them too. Brush your teeth, wear a seatbelt. I don't know. I'll see you soon with another video.